Կազմակերպությամբ Թորոնթոյի Հայ Յանձնախումբին հայոց ցեղասպանութեան 108-ամյակի ոգեկոչումը տեղի ունեցավ Կիրակի Ապրիլ 23-ին Թորոնթոյի Հայ կեդրոնէն ներս։ Փանախոսեց Kyle Matthews, դնորեն Concordia համալսարանի The Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies-ի։ Ցեզի կներկայացնենք մասեր ոգեկոչումի նախաձեռնութենեն։ Այսօր Թորոնթոյի Հայ կեդրոնէն ներս կհյուրընկալենք զանազան քաղաքական ներկայացուցիչներ եւ թեմքեր, որոնց հետ պիտի զրուցենք, նաեւ պիտի զրուցենք հարաճիգա Թորոնթոյի քաղաքական ընտրություններ ու տեխնազուներուն հետ եւ պիտի իմանանք թե ինչն է որ զանոնք կմղե այսօր հոս ներկա գտնվելու հայոց ցեղասպանութեան 108-ամյակի առիթով։ With us now is Mark Saunders, former Toronto Chief of Police. We welcome you here at the Armenian Community Center.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, I've been here a few times, so it's fantastic to come back.
And could you speak about what motivates you to be here today?
Well, this symbolizes what Canada is about. This is the Canadian dream. When you look at a community that starts from nothing and builds up with the church and then the community connections and then the expansion piece and where the Armenian community is right now. And the fact that this community was able to bring in 5,000 refugees with their own funding, understanding the importance of bringing more community in. It speaks to your heart, it speaks to who you are as a community, and these are values that are so important to not just Canada, but your contributions to the city of Toronto as well.
What does it mean for you to be here at this special day?
It means standing with the community, recognizing the genocide, talking about it, educating. We need to learn about what happened in the past to make sure that it doesn't happen again in the future.
As a candidate for Mayor of Toronto right now, I'm having great opportunities just engaging with so many different communities, and I think the vibrancy of the Armenian community and the culture and the history is just so important, and should I have the honor of becoming mayor to keep that relationship going strong.
Today we are commemorating the genocide of 1.5 million Armenians 108 years ago. And obviously it is so important as an elected official, as a leader in this city, to stand in solidarity with the Armenian community and to call a genocide what it is, which is genocide, and make sure that we never forget, because if we forget, we are doomed to repeat. And I'd also like to add, when I'm elected mayor, I will stand with the Armenian community to build a monument here in Toronto to recognize the Armenian genocide, to commemorate that. And I also think it's very important to work with the Armenian Community Center here to build a safe community for all of the kids and seniors who use this facility on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, with everything going on right now with Azerbaijan and the continued oppression of Armenians overseas, it's an important reminder for all of us to stand steadfast with the Armenian community, call out oppression, and make sure we support our friends.
In 1915, the ideology of Pan-Turanism, linking Anatolia to Central Asia, led to the slaughter of the Armenians that were in the way. 100 years later, Erdogan spouts the same rhetoric and has already begun taking similar steps, hand in hand with Azerbaijan. Just as Armenian churches were left in ruins in 1915, or recharacterized as having been built by Christian Turks, including the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Ani, a former Armenian capital, in our own lifetime we are witnessing Azerbaijan destroying churches or denying their Armenian origins. It is undeniable that a genocide left unpunished is bound to be repeated.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. I started my career, as I mentioned, in the Southern Caucasus, and had the chance to visit Armenia and visit the Armenian Genocide Memorial and the Genocide Museum. And it left me shocked at what I saw. And it made me ask, how come I didn't know about this? How come growing up in Canada, I didn't know about what happened to Armenians? And as I've learned over the years, working particularly with the Armenian community in Montreal, to mark the centennial of the genocide, I've really come to appreciate the spirit of Armenians, both here in Toronto and Canada. Canada, our country, is not perfect. We have blemishes in our history, mistreatment of Indigenous Canadians. We're coming and we're being aware of that, and we're admitting to bad things have happened. But very often when Canadians speak out, that's thrown back at us by authoritarian states, including Turkey. And we must show the way and show that we built a multiracial, multicultural democracy, and that we must center genocide prevention as a key part of our values and our foreign policy. Canada has played a major role in the world in dealing with massive human rights abuses. Our former Canadian Prime Minister, Lester B. Pearson, won the Nobel Peace Prize for creating peacekeeping, which has then been deployed around the world to protect people in civil wars. We've played a major role after General Romeo Dallaire, stationed as a peacekeeper in Rwanda in 1994, and saw Rwanda consumed by genocidal violence. We saw after that Canada play a leadership role to create something called the responsibility to protect. The notion that no country could say its sovereignty was no one else's business, and that the international community had a responsibility to try to help that state prevent mass atrocity crimes and genocide. That concept, although now disputed, has now over 53 countries that have R2P, response direct focal points in government, and we have that movement working to try to prevent and interdict atrocity crimes today. Now I would say that there's two things that make the world a bit more complicated today in dealing with preventing and interdicting genocide. Number one, we have the spread of hate speech. Every genocide begins with words, not actions. Dehumanizing language, treating the minority as the other. That is setting the stage to tell your fellow citizens that others are not equal of equal rights, and violence, and treating them as subhuman, helps condition human beings to commit violent acts. So we must tackle hate speech. And today, with the rise of emerging technologies and social media, we see hate speech being broadcast across borders. We have individuals, before only the state could take control of a radio station, broadcast propaganda and instill hate. Now individuals can do it. Working in Montreal at the start of the Syrian civil war, I saw how ISIS, Daesh, a terrorist extremist group, used social media to recruit Canadians to come to Iraq and Syria to commit atrocities and genocide against Yazidis and other minority groups. That same violence also displaced thousands and thousands of Armenians living in Aleppo and other parts of Syria. So we see that we need to deal with hate speech, and we have to really figure out how to do that fast, because we're losing control, and others are weaponizing these tools against our democracy and against our way of life. Secondly, we're also seeing a rise of what people call digital authoritarianism. We're seeing countries use emerging technologies, AI-powered facial recognition software, to track and control people. We see the creation of bot armies that will attack politicians for speaking out on human rights, to silence you, to create the false impression that you are wrong, and they will attack you online nonstop until you finally heed their warnings and be quiet. So this is a lesson about how we need to understand how our world is changing, and our world is changing very quickly, and we need to get on top of the ball, and we need to stand for human rights, and with Armenia. I can't imagine a situation where a country that committed genocide against Armenians 108 years ago, is now carrying out acts with its neighbors to the detrimental interests of Armenians. And I think that's the key. When you don't come to recognition about atrocities committed in the past, not by you personally, but by your government or your people, you're bound to repeat them. You're bound to make mistakes. And we can't let that happen. We need to use this moment to speak out. We need to be very happy that Canada is about to reopen an embassy in Armenia. We're going to have a closer foothold on the ground to monitor what's happening, to monitor the behavior and the blockage of the Lachin corridor, which is against international humanitarian law. And what are the long-term objectives of Azerbaijan and others for those who are still living there? I don't think we should put up with that, and I think we should get more engaged in the region. Hopefully we will.
I became aware of the Armenian genocide because my father was a consulting engineer, and he worked around the world, and he met so many professionals of Armenian descent, the diaspora, all across North America and Europe. And I remember those first lessons from him telling me about the horror that occurred. And so I would now like to read the message from the Prime Minister. It is with great honor that I send my greetings as all of you gather to commemorate the 108th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. Today we pay tribute to the lives that were tragically taken. Today we offer our heartfelt sympathies to their community members around the world.
The heroes of this demonstrated that we can never remain silent in the face of injustice, and it showed us that we have a role to play in standing up for the world's most vulnerable. And today we honor the struggles of the fallen, and we honor the memories. To those who experienced it firsthand, they're no longer here, but their memory lives on through the sons and the daughters and the granddaughters and the grandsons who will make sure that this is known to every single Canadian, that this is known to every level of government, that this is known to anybody who will listen to make sure that it never happens again.
I'm continually inspired by the resilience and perseverance of the Armenian Canadian people in Dalmatia North, who have made a significant contribution to our community. As the co-chair of the Armenian Canadian Parliamentary Friendship Group, I'm committed to working tirelessly for the Armenian community and advocate for their needs that includes a resolution of the blockade of Lachin corridor.
Many thanks to the Armenian Genocide Commemoration Committee of Toronto for its dedication to ensuring that we never forget this crime against humanity. In remembering, we ensure that present and future generations fight hatred, intolerance, and injustice in all its forms.
I would like to thank the Canadian people for their steadfast support of the Armenian genocide survivors from the early days, from the time it happened. We as an elected officials, as I said, all levels of government, it is our duty to follow in the footsteps of our forebears who stood up for right and justice to prevent this genocide from happening again. So I urge all of you, let's go beyond making statements. Let's take concrete action to bring the perpetrator to justice.
I'm also here on behalf of the leader of the official opposition in Ontario, Marit Stiles, and all of my provincial NDP MPP colleagues. Today, we all stand in solidarity with the Armenian community and recognize the Armenian genocide that claimed over 1 million lives.
I look at the Armenian community, at your strength, generosity, resilience, and perseverance in the face of true adversity. I look at everyone else in this room, united in saying to the Armenian people, we are with you, in saying that there is no room in our communities for hatred, for racism, discrimination, or violence, in saying never again. And that is the humanity that I believe in.
It is up to all of us as a collective society to ensure that we provide support to those who have experienced extreme and institutionalized violence by identifying, calling out, and condemning precursors to violence. As Mr. Matthews has pointed out, we have to identify those precursors to violence and genocide, including prejudice, hate, racism, and other forms of discrimination.
Today is the time to raise our voices against intolerance and persecution of any kind. And today is time to strengthen our resolve, to never forget, to pay tribute to the victims who live on in hearts and minds.
In 2008, the Toronto District School Board developed a grade 11 course, Genocide and Crimes Against Humanity. And in June 2020, we moved and requested the Ministry of Education to accredit the course a university credit, while also lobbying the provincial government to make genocide education a mandatory element of curriculum.
Աղաչանքով բոլոր սուպերուն եւ մանավանդ այսօրվա 1.5 միլիոն նահատակներու, որոնք սրբացած են եւ կփառավորենք քեզ Հորը, Որդին եւ Սուրբ Հոգին հետ միասին այժմ եւ մինչեւ յանս ամեն